Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with more vibe for you. Yes, we gonna keep doing that history vibe because I'm having so much fun and I hope you guys are having fun too, you know what I mean? And Ting. Alright, so this one is called 10 Unsolved Mysteries from the Victorian era. So it's 10 Unsolved Victorian Mysteries. Boom. Simple title and thing, and you know what I mean. So yeah, you have your modern day unsolved mysteries, and everybody's like forensic this, forensic that. Back then, let's see what they did. Let's see what the vibe is and how they dealt with mysteries that they were trying to solve and thing and thing. You know what I mean? Let's YouTube and simmer.
The Victorian era lasted from 1837 to 1901. During this time, scientific breakthroughs helped solve countless mysteries, but there are some unsolved mysteries which were born during the era. The era saw European empires expanding east and American settlers expanding west, so I'll be including mysteries from both continents. In 2003, historians were digging in an area of London called St. Pancras. They discovered a 19th century human burial site and extracted 1,500 skeleton. This was fairly normal, but they also discovered an old Victorian coffin. Inside the coffin they found a dead walrus. Also inside the coffin were 3 human skulls. Analysis of the walrus remains shows it was from the Arctic Ocean. No one knows how a walrus ended up buried in Victorian London. All research has failed to find any historical records relating to it.
Wow. That's crazy.
The most famous Victorian ghost ship was the Mary Celeste, but I find the less well-known cases a lot more interesting. In 1845, 2 British ships set out to explore the Northwest Passage. They were the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror. Both ships had their own steam engine and were iron-plated. They also had several years of supplies on board. But after leaving England, they would never be seen again. The sea beneath their ship froze solid, leaving them stranded. After that, little is known about their fate. Victorian newspapers soon reported that the ship had mysteriously disappeared. It was only 2 years ago that one of the ships was found.
Wow.
The other is still missing. In Arizona, legend tells of a huge gold mine hidden somewhere in the Superstition mountain range, known as the Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine. It might be the most famous lost mine in history. Apparently, a German immigrant was once told of the mine's location after helping out a wealthy landowner. Looking into the gold mine, he realized it would make him a millionaire, but he was fatally wounded by natives on his way back to town. He survived just long enough to tell a local doctor about the mine, and the legend was born. The tale became well known during the late 19th century, with tens of thousands attempting to find the mine. Some people are still looking for the mine today.
Ain't no mine. Come on now.
In 1886, a man died. A deadly amount of chloroform was found inside his stomach, and it was assumed that his wife killed him. His wife was acquitted after 5 days on trial. There was no evidence that she killed him. He could have drank the chloroform in suicide, but there were no burns to his throat or windpipe. Drinking chloroform would surely leave burns. To this day, it's unknown how the chloroform got inside his stomach. This mystery caused one doctor to say, now that she has been acquitted for murder and cannot be tried again, she should tell us in the interest of science how she did it.
Wow. Yeah, believe the woman. She did it. It's just I guess it's normal. I watch a lot of these shows and stuff to think the husband did the vibe and thing, or the wife did the vibe, or the closest person to the person did the vibe and thing. How did it get there? No buns in the throat? Did she inject it in him? Or how do they think she did it? I mean, she didn't seem to be no scientist from what they show here, so how did she do it? She could have injected it into him. I don't know, but they found it in his stomach. Huh? Huh? Mystery unsolved. I ain't no forensic scientist, and I ain't no scientist, so I can't tell you. I could just speculate.
Aileen Moor is a tiny Scottish island where a lighthouse has stood since 1899. In 1901, passing boats noticed the lighthouse was not lit and reported it to the authorities. Officials soon paid the island a visit to find the keepers were missing. This was strange, as their job demanded they only leave in emergencies. Their disappearance was discovered on December 25th, with their last diary entry 10 days earlier. It described how they were on edge. They seemed terrified of something unspecified. The whole island was searched, but no evidence of their fate was found. They simply disappeared.
Yeah, somebody took them. Somebody took them. Come on now.
Lost Ship of the Desert has been a popular tale since the 1860s. It tells that a long-lost ship has been found in a Californian desert. In 1863, an army colonel claims to have found an old Spanish galleon. He said it was full of treasure, which he would soon return for, but the desert flooded with water before he could do so. That desert is still underwater today, so the galleon really could exist. Other tales describe a Viking ship in the desert. I'm pretty sure Vikings never reached California, but California was part of the Spanish Empire. I did mention the Mary Celeste. It was a merchant ship sailing from New York to Italy. It set off on November 7th, 1872, and 1 month later the ship was discovered drifting aimlessly. No one was on board. There was no sign of what happened to the crew. The last diary entry stated that all was going well. The only things missing were a lifeboat and the crew themselves. The ship was undamaged, the cargo was fine, and the crew's personal belongings left behind. It is unlikely we will ever find out what happened. Perhaps their equipment malfunctioned and they thought land was near. This may have caused them to row out until they got lost.
Yeah, coming from an island, you hear a lot of these stories of ships wrecking or disappearing or stuff like that. There is one, and we have this harbor, and it's like, I guess it's kind of a horseshoe shape type, and you go in to get to the main port, and there is a sort of memorial right to the right as you're coming in, and I can't remember what the name of the ship was, and it's really vague right now. So it's stories that I've heard about it, but it didn't happen that far back. It happened like maybe 40s or 50s or something like that, when people were taking ships and going to England and then, to the other islands and stuff. We didn't have like airport accessibility at the time and thing. And it said that that part of the place is really deep. I mean, we hear all kinds of story, but this is like right up against the land. You know what I mean? But just a little story from childhood days that this reminded me of.
In February 1855, southern England had a lot of snowfall. After a night of heavy snow, a trail of footprints was discovered in the countryside. They were not human footprints, or those of any known animal. They appeared to have been made by a cloven hoof in single-file steps, which led them to be known as the Devil's Footprints. Many people genuinely thought they were the Devil's Footprints, and that Satan himself was in England that night. The Devil's Footprints stretched on for at least 40 miles and even appeared on rooftops. There were all kinds of crazy theories on what caused them. My favourite is that a kangaroo escaped from a local zoo. Despite the appealing nature of this theory, the Devil's Footprints remain a mystery. I can't make this video without including the Ripper murders. I'm sure most of you already know the story, but for those of you who don't, in 1888, 5 women were murdered in the Whitechapel district of London. They were soon linked to the same murderer, who was never identified. His victims were usually prostitutes. Dozens were killed around the same time and in the same area. The Ripper may well have killed them also. At the time, a Polish immigrant was the main suspect. He lived within a mile of the crime scenes and was known to hate prostitutes, but he was sent to a mental asylum before being put on trial. We may never know if it really was him.
May never know. We will never know. I've been hearing about this thing since I was a child, man, you know. Excuse me. Growing up in a British colony, we heard this story a lot, you know what I mean? Jack the Ripper. And there was actually rhymes about Jack the Ripper. I don't remember them, but I know there was rhymes about him. And you know, there's so many hypotheses of who did it and why they did it. There was one about a doctor, and you know, just all different kinds of stuff. It's just crazy that after all these years, you know, all these years, people are still trying to figure out this Jack the Ripper thing. It's just crazy.
These days, Jack the Ripper is the most famous murderer of his century. But at the time, people were more focused on a different murderer. In 1889, the Scottish island Arran was the site of a murder mystery. Two men walked up the island's highest mountain, but one fell to his death. The other man was John Laurie. He immediately went on the run, before being arrested after 2 months. He tried to kill himself before they could arrest him. He denied murdering the other man, but was found guilty. It was, and still is, a controversial verdict, and Laurie claimed innocence for the rest of his life. The two men were good friends. Both men stayed at the same hotel, but Laurie did so under a fake name.
Yo, homeboy Laurie, that's kind of fishy. If you're gonna go hiking or camping, what it is you went to do with your best friend, why you going into the hotel and registering with a fake name? And then claiming innocence till you come on now, that's just fishy right there. I mean, bumbleclot, you don't need no forensic vibe there to say, hey, something is wrong here. But anyway, man, thank you all for tuning in and stuff like that. Watching this vibe with me and thing, you know what I mean? I'm going to leave a link in the description to this video so y'all could go check it out. Check out the channel, see what kind of vibe they have, you know what I mean? And also, right there, keep watching my vibe, you know what I mean? I got some cool stuff. I got American history, I got Irish history, I got German history, I got Russian history, you name it. It's in that educational list that I have there. Go check it out and thing. And of course I have other stuff too, funny stuff. You can check out the funny one too. But just keep watching. Yeah, like I said, YouTube and Simmer. Alright? Cool runnings all, yeah.